Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Today I will be talking about the results of the recent Stockholm Regional Championships with over 800 players and one of the final tournaments in our current rotation format. There's one more tournament happening this weekend, I believe, in Brisbane, and after that it's pretty much just all the new formats. So kind of an exciting close, I guess, to the rotation that we currently have. A lot of decks are kind of going away. A lot of decks on this list right here at the top of the placements are going away. So it's kind of like bittersweet, you know what I mean? There's a lot of decks I'm going to miss, Lost Zone especially, it's my favorite deck, that are going to be completely gone, so I'm really sad about that. But there are a lot of decks that I am looking forward to. And so in this video I want to kind of just go through a couple of these decks here and kind of talk about them. Most specifically, I want to talk about some of the interesting decks that we don't really see too often. Obviously, if you saw the thumbnail, we do have a Hydriegon in top 32, and scrolling down a little bit further, we do have some other interesting decks that actually plays pretty well at this event. I think what was kind of crazy is just the beginning of the event. If you watched the beginning of the stream, we had a Slacking EX deck that was on stream, which was very interesting. That's a Pokemon that I've never seen kid play before. I don't know how they ended up actually doing overall, but yeah, we'll take a look into it and kind of see what crazy decks there were. So obviously one of the biggest stories was Isaiah Bradner winning first place at the regional. Kind of a long time awaited win, definitely deservedly so. And with a deck like Gardevoir is very interesting. I think this is a deck that a lot of people expected to do well at this event. Maybe not necessarily win the event, but you know, Gardevoir is just kind of always good. It feels like it seems like it's kind of always a good play. And yeah, I mean, overall pretty standard list. You know, overall we do see the Cresselia here, which kind of makes sense with how the format is right now. Nothing too crazy with this list, I would say. Got the 3 Monkey Dories. I think it's interesting how big of a part Monkey Dory is of Gardevoir. I mean, it just makes sense. You're just constantly doing damage to yourself. And honestly, just watching Gardevoir is just so interesting, I feel like. I've played it a little bit myself. It's definitely a deck where you have to think a lot, I feel like. You definitely have to kind of plan out your prize mapping and things like that pretty well. So it's just a really interesting deck, and honestly a really interesting list. We have the Devo here as well, the TM Devo, something that's not seen in every Gardevoir deck. So overall it was a really good finals match. I enjoyed watching it. It was basically just a one game set that went like 40-50 minutes, and kind of came down to a coin flip, and after that his opponent conceded. So it was really interesting to watch. And I will go ahead and quickly talk about his opponent in the finals, which was Alessandro with the control deck here. Really interesting list here. Kind of watching this, I always think control is an interesting deck just because a lot of times they are kind of different here. One interesting kind of tech card I feel like was Festival Grounds. At first when I was like watching him go through his deck, I was like, I thought I saw this card, but I was like, is this what I'm thinking it is? But I forgot the one interesting thing that this card does do is that it basically prevents you from getting affected by special conditions. So this can be very useful in certain matchups, specifically when you're dealing with poison. I would say going against all the Pecharuns out there right now, this could definitely be something that kind of saves you in those matchups. So I think that's kind of what this is mostly in there for, is especially that Pecharun matchup. But yeah, overall really interesting card to include. Also the Radiant Serena, interesting pick there to kind of heal 20 extra damage. It makes a lot of sense. You're just kind of trying to wall things out a little bit. You got the Mist Energy here as well. One interesting play too that I see with the Luxray, which we saw quite a couple times, I would say, in his stream games, was the double turbos onto Luxray. This is something like myself, maybe I'm just like not knowledgeable in this, right? But I didn't even like put 2 and 2 together, but with the Fang Snipe, having both double turbos attached makes it to where you do no damage, and you can basically just kind of like lock something into the active and just go for Fang Snipes without any threat of knocking them out. So that's a really interesting thing that I've never really seen before. I don't really watch a whole lot of control. I kind of just see that control is on the stream and then I click away. But this was really interesting to watch. I did watch like most of the finals, so really cool to see. Also, this Milotic here is a card that I think is going to be interesting moving forward. Kind of wondering if it's going to be good at all like post rotation, especially when you look at decks like for Alligator, for example, that play Feebas already. Maybe you can throw one of these in there just for certain matchups, but basically just use it for its ability to kind of prevent your opponent from being able to pick up their Pokemon and put it in their hand. So you're basically stopping, Penny, Professor's Turo, those kinds of cards. I've always kind of felt like this card is good, but it hasn't really seen any play at all. But I do think moving forward, it is an interesting card to kind of keep in mind. Other than that, we do have some pretty, standard cards for control, nothing like too crazy. The Blood Moon Ursaluna is always an interesting option, kind of just to close out games and situations. So I do think that's a really cool card to include as well. But overall, pretty solid control list, I would say. In the rest of top 8, we did have 2 Dragapults, obviously, you know, considered the best deck in the format right now, so no surprise there. We did get an Archaludon getting 3rd place. Running the 1/1 Dialga line, which is really cool to see. One of my favorite cards. I actually built this deck and I never actually played it, so I kind of just let those cards go to waste because at this point I'm never going to play it again. You know, you love to see the Iron Bundle as well, of course. This is a really good deck. I feel like it's one of those decks where a lot of people think it's not like that great. It's just kind of like good, but not like, you know, up there. So to see it get 3rd place at another event doing really well is just good to see. And then it's going to be interesting to see how this deck is affected like post rotation. I've seen a couple of different builds with like Pecharon, I think the Dunsparce as well, so there are some different ways to play it. So I think this is a deck that just kind of needs more testing in general. This is definitely an interesting list here. We're going with the Unfair Stamp build as well. We also do have 1 rare candy just to kind of get a Dragapult out there turn 2. The 4th place Dragapult deck here actually did not run any of the Dusknoir lines, so that's kind of interesting to see. I feel like that's kind of the standard line that we kind of see in most decks with, you know, with Dragapult. Instead, opting for some more support cards. We got like the Klefki, for example, to shut down, you know, basic abilities. Obviously the Radiant Alakazam's in there, the Hawlucha for the extra damage, Monkey Dory's in there, obviously. This is a really cool list to kind of look at. One last ride here for Cloth in 5th place. Another deck that's going to be kind of changing. I mean, Terapagos isn't really going anywhere, but you know, this kind of Cloth Terapagos build is, you know, kind of going out the door. We're losing Sneasler, obviously. We're losing Oranguru. We're losing Cloth. This one has a baby Regidrago. This is interesting here. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may draw cards until you have 4 cards in your hand. Okay, interesting. That's actually seems pretty decent, honestly, especially now that we have Latios in like every single deck. That actually seems like a pretty decent card, not gonna lie. Now that I'm looking at this, I'm kind of like, well, why did nobody else run this card? That's interesting. I don't know. You just get to draw 4 cards by having this in the active spot. That just seems kind of broken. We got a Lugia in top 8 as well. 6th place here, going with the Chinchino build. We got 2/2 line of those. I know for a while people were cutting those out, but now we have 2 in this one. This one does also have the Wellspring Ogerpon, a card that we're going to be seeing a lot of post-rotation. Radiant Charizard, kind of an interesting inclusion here. This is a really unique Lugia build. I feel like I haven't seen a build like this before Lugia, so kind of a interesting way to kind of innovate the deck, you know. One last ride. I guess there's one more tournament, but pretty much at the end of the format. And of course, you know, we've got to have Snorlax. This one is as simple as it gets. 4 Snorlax, 1 Rotom, and 1 Cornerstone Ogerpon. No energy, and then 54 trainer cards. Yeah, this is Snorlax for you right here. This is crazy, actually. This is actually kind of crazy. Running the Megaton Blower as well. Okay, this is probably, you know, for like the Lugia matchup, I would assume, getting rid of special energy. There's so many random one-of cards here. Like, you got Root Fossil, you got Picnic Basket. This is kind of a crazy build, not gonna lie. And that pretty much rounds out our top 8 right there. Like, we do have another Dragapult, like I said. This one also not running the Dusknoir line, it looks like. This one does not have Monkey Dory, the other one did, so kind of a cut there. This one's running Collapse Stadium. Okay, Defiance Vest, we saw that in the other one as well. Kind of interesting to see that the 2 top Dragapult decks did not run Dusknoir, so interesting to look at. Now, outside of the top 8, let's go ahead and look at some of the interesting decks. Starting off in 10th place, we do have Regidrago. And this is kind of crazy to me because they basically said, you know what, if I run into Badoo, it is what it is. This right here looks like a very kind of standard Dragapult, or sorry, what is a Dragapult? Regidrago build here that we kind of, you know, used to see before Badoo was a thing. Overall, you know, pretty standard list, I would say. Nothing too crazy, honestly. We got the 2 Canceling Cologne here. I'm guessing to deal with some of the more annoying Pokemon that this deck has to face. And aside from that, there's really no, like, counters or anything that I can see to kind of get around Badoo. It looks like they were kind of just hoping to avoid Badoo, and the fact that they got 10th place, I'm sure that they did get to kind of avoid Badoo. This one actually does run 1 Badoo. I didn't see that, so I guess that's kind of an interesting inclusion, but overall pretty standard Drago list. It's just kind of crazy and unusual, I guess, to see it in 10th place because, you know, the deck kind of fell off. I do think it is still really good, but I do think a lot of people just kind of stopped playing it in general. Scroll down a little bit further, we do have our highest placing Lost Zone deck. Very excited to see this, of course. This is my favorite deck, like I said before. Interesting, you know, to see 2 Cramorants. I feel like we haven't really seen that before. It does kind of make sense. I'm guessing also to kind of deal with Badoo, just kind of ensuring that you have Cramorant out, you know, turn 1 whenever you're able to attack. I'm pretty sure that's something that's going to help you out a lot in that matchup, so kind of makes sense. Just something that we've never really seen too much of before. And aside from that, it is a pretty standard Lost Box build, nothing too crazy outside of that really. We do have an Iron Thorns in 20th place. Okay. Quad Thorns, haven't seen that in a while. Obviously the World Championship winning deck that we do have here. Giovanni's Charisma, I actually don't remember ever seeing this card. Put an energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon into their hand. If you do, attach an energy from your hand to your Pokemon. Okay, that's kind of cool actually. That's actually a really interesting card. It definitely feels like it would fit in a deck like this. Kind of crazy to see Quad Thorns, honestly. Haven't seen that in a while. And scrolling down a bit further in 23rd place, we do have the Hydriegon deck. One of my favorite Pokemon actually, and I'm honestly like, this is one of those cards that like, when you first look at it, it's like, okay, this seems extremely broken. Like, not only do you have one good attack, but you have 2 really good attacks. You've got one attack that mills your opponent, you know, with 3 cards, and it does 200 damage. And then you have another attack that does 130 damage to 3 Pokemon. Sounds kind of insane, not gonna lie. But that being said, this deck has really done absolutely nothing since it's come out. Like, this is just kind of a bad deck in most people's opinion. And I mean, the results kind of speak for themselves. But that being said, we do have some results here. Top 32 with Hydriegon. Really, really cool to see. Obviously 2 really good attacks, and you can pull off the Obsidian attack. We do have obviously 7 Darkness Energy, but we do have the 1 Neo Upper Energy, and we also have the Counter Gain. If you find yourself behind at all, just go ahead and attach the Counter Gain. You know, make sure you have a Dark Energy already on your Pokemon, and go ahead attach that Neo Upper Energy, which you can search out with Pidgeot, and you can start swinging with that attack. Unlike a lot of other decks that kind of bench snipe, you don't have to discard any energy, and also you have 330 HP, which means if you do get that set up, especially early, you're doing a lot of damage. Yeah, obviously your main attacker here is Hydreigon. You have Pidgeot, you know, for that support engine, and then you have your other support Pokemon with Greninja, Lumineon, Rotom, Fezandipity, and Petron EX to be able to switch in your Hydreigons. We do have the Gravity Mountain, which at first I was kind of like, why is this in the deck? But I did actually see this person's tweet that kind of explained some of this deck, and you know, people had questions in the comments, and they basically said that this is for the Lugia matchup because of Archeops, and it actually makes a lot of sense. You have this down and you go for Obsidian, you just wipe Archeops in 1 turn. That's kind of crazy. Also having some dark patches here, which means that you can really power up Hydreigon pretty fast. It's just a really cool deck in general. You know, same thing, I feel like it gets hit kind of hard with Badoo, but if you get set up, I feel like it does a lot of damage fast. And at the same time, you're milling your opponent, so you're just getting rid of cards. After that, we do have another Lost Box deck. I'm just gonna keep pointing this out because I love seeing Lost Box. This one's very interesting. This has a Fan Rotom and a Ditto, 2 cards that we never see in Lost Box, but kind of makes sense. Obviously the Ditto seems like a pretty decent card. You know, you'd run a lot of one-of Pokemon, you know, that turn 1 being able to get stuff out, you know, getting a Comfy out if you can't find one for whatever reason, getting your Cramorant out so you can attack. Seems pretty good. The Fan Rotom here is kind of interesting. I'm guessing this is specifically for Badoo. I don't really see you using the ability for anything. I mean, you can get Ditto out, but that's about it. But the attack can be nice in a lot of times when you're going up against Badoo. If you have a stadium in play, you can just knock something out real quick. But aside from that, I don't really see this being good for anything else. I could be wrong though. This is one of those interesting inclusions that I'm sure there's a really good reason to include it. I'm just not seeing it here. And yeah, aside from that, you know, pretty standard list here. We are running the Pokestop instead of the Artisan, which a lot of decks have been running Artisan, but now we're running the Pokestop here. Overall, good to see another Lost Box. What's also kind of interesting is the fall off of Goldango. The highest placing one that I'm seeing is 45th. That's kind of crazy considering the fact that Goldango has been popping off, and the fact that we have this deck placing 43rd with Garchomp EX and Okidogi. I didn't even know this was a deck. I didn't even know this was a rogue deck. I don't think I've ever seen this in my life. I remember Garchomp. I remember going to a pre-release before this set came out. I remember somebody talking about this card, about how broken it's going to be, and obviously it has gone nowhere. It's got Hydrolander, which says 160, attach up to 3 basic fighting energy from your discard pile to your benched Pokemon, and also Sonic Dive. Discard 2 energy cards. It does 120 to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Considering the fact that we just saw Hydreigon, which can do up to 130 to 3 Pokemon for 2 more energy, that's kind of crazy. And because we're getting rid of our energy here too. Now obviously we have support options here. We've got Lumineon, we've got Monkey Dory, Iron Bundle, all the standard stuff that we see in a lot of decks here. But we do have the Okidogi, and if this Pokemon has a Darkness Energy attached to it, it gets 100 more HP, and the attacks it uses do 100 more damage. So I mean, I guess this kind of makes sense. You basically just send out Garchomp early on, I'm guessing. You basically attach those fighting energy to Okidogi, attach the dark energies to them, or in this case the luminous energy, and you start swinging for 170. You add a Bravery Charm on top of that, so really you're sitting at about 290, 280. It's not bad, I guess. This is an interesting deck. I don't know if I like this. This just seems like it's bad. I'm gonna be honest. Maybe I'll have to test this out. This is just interesting to me. But what's crazy about that is that we have the one in 43rd, but there was another one I'm pretty sure I saw, which was like further down. Yeah, 92nd place. So 2 of these in top 100 is kind of insane, actually. Out of 800 players, that's kind of crazy. Aside from that, we do have some other cool decks, you know, kind of standing out here. We do have the Roaring Moons, obviously. This is a deck that I really enjoy. This is the one that uses the water energies with the Radiant Greninja. This is a really cool build. Runs the Emergency Jelly as well. I actually plan on using this before rotation happens. I do want to use one of these Roaring Moon deck lists here and use it at a local league challenge. I do have a couple that are coming up, but I actually might use this list and kind of test it out and see it for myself. But I do like the build with the water energy. I think it's a really cool option to have that Radiant Greninja to be able to snipe stuff kind of unexpectedly. We've also got a Cerulege here doing pretty decently overall. This deck, I honestly don't enjoy playing it at all. It feels kind of boring to me. I'm not even gonna lie. You're just getting energy in your discard and, you know, hitting for big damage, I guess. One of those decks that I feel like was kind of overhyped at first, and now we don't really see it too often. But I mean, still always cool to see a deck that you don't see too often. Got some more Iron Thorns down here. Again, kind of interesting to see here. Haven't seen it in a while doing well, but here we are having 2 in top 100. And man, can we talk about the fall of Charizard? 74th place? Kind of crazy? Man, dude, it's crazy what one Badoo does to you, right? Like, this deck was everywhere, and now it's just kind of falling off. And I think that's pretty much it for like the crazy stuff. I'm really curious on how the Slacking player finished. Obviously not making day 2, but still was really cool to see on stream if you guys didn't watch it. But yeah, honestly, some really cool decks here, and yeah, kind of sad to see some decks not do that great. I mean, Charizard, for example, we have, looks like 2 that made, no, 3, I think. Yeah, I think 3 made day 2, and that's it. No, 4. Okay, no, 5. They're okay, never mind. There's a couple more. I started scrolling up from the bottom. There's about 5 that made it. That's okay. That's good. But yeah, just wanted to kind of go over some of the decks from this tournament. Some really interesting decks here. Also, a very interesting top 8 was really fun to watch. So some really good sets there online if you haven't checked them out yet. Go ahead and let me know in the comments which deck you are sad to see rotate out. I'm excited for the new rotation, but like I said, I'm really going to miss Lost Zone. And while you're down there, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it. That's going to be it for this video. I'll have this Limitless page linked in the description below, so make sure you check that out if you want to see these deck lists for yourself. But yeah, other than that, got nothing else for you guys. Hope you have a good one, and I'll catch you in the next one.